Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Deciphering My Experience. My name is Eric, and boy, is there some interesting news coming out of Antarctica. But first things first, if you can please subscribe, like, and share. Go to the website, subscribe there. It'd be awesome. Really appreciate it. But back to the news at hand coming out of Antarctica. I want to thank Brian, who's a decipherer. He sent me this link in an email. Just happened this weekend. Apparently, there was an evac going on out in Antarctica. So let me pull up that article. And let's see what's going on. So, U.S. calls in New Zealand Air Force for risky Antarctic medevac. It doesn't happen too often, folks. Every 5 or so years seems to be something happening in that capacity. But it says a C-130 Hercules landed on an icy Antarctic runway late Sunday to rescue an American suffering from a serious medical condition at McMurdo Station. That's the one on the coast, folks. A risky medevac mission to New Zealand. A risky medevac mission the New Zealand military said was its first using night vision technology. I guess it's a first for them. I know that other flight crews, U.S. flight crews, have done the whole night vision landing in Antarctica before. This is one of those missions that will test the crew and the pilot's skills, said U.S. Army Colonel Ian Murray, defense attaché of the U.S. Embassy in Wellington, in a video about the operation. You're landing a giant aircraft on ice at night without lights under night vision goggles. It's winter in the southern hemisphere, and flights to Antarctica are rare and difficult, but the evacuation ensured the patient got medical care unavailable at the station, the National Science Foundation said in a statement, expressing gratitude for New Zealand's help. I find that interesting because I imagine that McMurdo, Mactown as they call it on the ice, is pretty well set up for a substantial amount of medical situations. I mean, it's McMurdo. We're not talking South Pole, so there are drastic differences. I know it's Antarctica proper, but we're not talking South Pole. It's McMurdo Station, so I'm very curious as to what happened there. There's a photo of the emergency vehicle backing up to the Herc. The two countries conduct scientific research in Antarctica and have a long-standing partnership. The Royal New Zealand Air Force flight with 13 crew members and medical personnel departed the country's South Island just before 10:30 p.m., the New Zealand Defense Force said in a statement. Typically, we do one of these missions maybe once every 5 to 10 years, said Robert Hattrill, RNZAF flight commander, in the video released by the U.S. Embassy. We were delighted and privileged to help out one of our Antarctic partners. Details on the Americans' health issue were not released. It was not life-threatening, Murray said. Well, that's interesting, to then threaten the lives of the entire crew to pull this person out. Does not seem like a reasonable, calculated risk. Something is odd. But it's one of those instances where we needed to get the person back to safety quickly. McMurdo Station is the logistics hub for the U.S. Antarctic program and the largest base on the continent. See, there you go. Largest base on the continent, non-life-threatening issues, risking 13 crew members and medical staff. Something's fishy, for sure. The Air Force crew had been trying to get to the southern continent since July 3rd, but bad weather had hampered efforts all week, RNZAF Base Auckland Command Group Captain Andy Scott said in the NZDF statement. Flying to Antarctica is one of the highest risk missions we fly due to the lack of divert airfields and inability to get down and back without refueling. Scott said, flying in winter presents even more challenges due to the extreme cold, the rapidly changing weather, and little to no visual warnings of the changes you would see in summer. The crew on the ground at McMurdo's Phoenix Airfield ensured the runway was lit and safe for landing, the NZDF said. The plane refueled and arrived back in Christchurch shortly after 2 p.m. Monday, the New Zealand military said. Lit the runway. I'm curious how they pulled that one off. Maybe a row of vehicles, burn barrels. I know when we had the airdrops during my winter season at Pole, we had we had a crew member that needed some stuff dropped, meds, I guess we can just put it that way. And the C-17 that came for that mission just simply flew overhead and used the burn barrels that we had set up as a target to hit, to drop the loads down onto. So we did it that way without a landing for a drop, and that's how we lit it up. Let's see. No, we were lit when our rescue occurred. We had sky. So when Renee got transferred out, it was a well-lit continent at the time. But there's another topic that I want to discuss as well that I keep, I guess, getting feedback from folks or heat, I guess you would say, resistance. A lot of people give me junk that, they don't believe that I've been to Antarctica. They say things like, well, it's so off limits, and how could you have gotten there? And it's like, I got there how I have said I got there. I got a job, and I got there. And since I was there, I want to let everybody know that there's like this angle that everybody seems to be a bit off about, that Antarctica is off limits. It's not off limits. It's off limits to poor people. It's the biggest unopened resource on the planet at this point. And the Antarctic Treaty, as agreed to by everybody else, simply just puts rules and regulations on what it takes to be there. That's what people don't understand. People that haven't been to Antarctica need to start listening to people that have been to Antarctica. It's that simple. It's a rich man's continent. There's nothing stopping anybody from going to Antarctica except funding. It's that simple. Anyone can go to Antarctica if you have a large enough check. So no, Antarctica is not off limits. There's nothing off limits about Antarctica. It's pay to play. Similar to the creation of the United States, when everybody was moving west and there was all kinds of land and great resource available to the masses. History shows us that all of a sudden, the wealthy people decided we need parkland. We don't need prosperous people. We need to protect the land at the expense of the people, which I get. I mean, there's a harmony and a balance, but grand scheme of intentions and outcomes, we have now protected land in the United States, parklands, similar to Antarctica, right? They tell you you can't go there, you can't do this, you can't do that. But you can't means you can't do it without paying the right fees. There's not national parkland anywhere in this country that somebody with the right amount of money can't simply go in, talk to a politician, have the land converted so there's no longer parkland. The developer can now pay for it, which means that effectively the only thing the parkland did was actually raise the price to play on the land, similar to Antarctica. It's not off limits. It's off limits to poor people, people that aren't working there. If you want to work there, if you want to labor in Antarctica, you could certainly go labor in Antarctica. Or if you want to take the fruits of your labors and have buckets and buckets of money to be able to play in that playground, there's nothing stopping you. Everyone is allowed in Antarctica, just like everyone's allowed in Disney World. Can you afford the ticket is the question. But that's a little tidbit of information for folks. Everybody's allowed in Antarctica. You just have to pay. But my name is Eric. This is Deciphering.tv. I hope that everybody enjoyed the conversation today, and I will remind you that if you are so blinded by today's anomalies and without the hindsight to appreciate the meaningful past, then you are without the perspective to grapple with the future. Forewarned is forearmed. I will pray for peace, but I will fight for freedom, and I hope that you all join me in the future.